Hey everyone, it feels like Bitcoin is winding up for the next major moves up, and also that nobody is paying attention. As usual at times like this, which are great buying opportunities for Bitcoin, everyone seems distracted and almost nobody's paying attention to what Bitcoin is doing. Of course I am, because I'm always paying attention to what Bitcoin is doing. And behind the scenes, all of the people that are paying attention are acquiring huge amounts of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin first started, the initial people who bought Bitcoin were average people like you and me. They tended to be techie people that were into the new technologies and things like that, which was really beautiful because it meant that the Bitcoin ownership was much more skewed toward individuals as opposed to governments or companies or things like that. As Bitcoin has gotten larger and larger and started to move more into the mainstream, though, the businesses and governments and entities are moving more quickly than adoption in general, which of course is, inevitable, but also, not my preferred way it plays out, because I would rather, regular people like you and me have as much Bitcoin as possible of the total supply of 21 million, as compared to the Bitcoin being, majority owned in the long term by corporations or businesses or other legal entities. So why is this playing out the way it is? Well, the answer is because every stock or bond or, commodity or money, in the case of Bitcoin, they all go through periods where it's boring. The price is boring. For example, in Bitcoin, it was launched in 2009. The first big price run was 2011, 2010, 2011, and then 2012 was a relatively boring year by comparison. Then there was a huge rally in 2013, but 2014, 2015, and 2016, there were long periods in that 3-year span of time in 2014, 15, and 16, while the price was maybe $100 or whatever it was, that nothing seemed to be happening, which means the numbers that you should be paying attention to were the adoption of Bitcoin. To what degree are people and entities and corporations adopting Bitcoin? And if you look under the surface, there was a huge amount of adoption of Bitcoin in 2014, 2015, and 2016. But the price for, relatively long periods, months at a time, seemed, not to change much. There was a huge price rally in 2017, each of these rallies pushing Bitcoin to far above the previous all-time highs. And then after 2017, 2018, 2019, and most of 2020 were pretty boring. So you had about 2.5 years where, for most people, it just felt like nothing was happening. 2018, 2019, and half of 2020. And then, after the huge price rally in 2021, there was 2022 as a down year. And then it started marching up in 2023, 2024, and now in 2025. So we're sitting at about 86,000 a coin. And here we are. Almost nobody's paying attention. People are bored. But behind the scenes, there's a huge amount of adoption. MicroStrategy just bought another 250 million. GameStop just issued $1.3 billion of corporate debt to buy Bitcoin. Like, there's all these people buying Bitcoin in the background, but the price is not moving that much. So what does that mean? Well, it means they are buying that Bitcoin off of regular people who are dumb enough to be selling it to them because they don't know what they own. So most of the Bitcoin that is being bought by MicroStrategy or by GameStop or by people like me, because I just took my total allocation of my liquid assets to 100% Bitcoin last week. It was at 99%. I went ahead and moved it to 100% Bitcoin. So people like me are buying more Bitcoin. Well, who is selling it? Well, unfortunately, the people who are selling it are people that just don't understand what they hold. They're not paying attention. They're not focused on the underlying value, and they're not focused on the underlying adoption. They don't realize that behind the scenes, Bitcoin is slowly marching to take over as the monetary system of the world. And so, maybe they got all excited for a minute. They bought Bitcoin at, 95,000 a coin, 106,000 a coin, whatever it was. They bought some, and then it went down, and then they got bored, and now they're selling it. and they think, that was a loser. I got in right at the end of the party. I missed the boat and showed up late, got all euphoric, bought Bitcoin above 100,000 a coin, and now they're selling it for 86,000 a coin. Well, if they just held on to it, it would be worth way more than $100,000 per coin. And if they held on to it, it would make all of these people who are buying right now pay a significantly higher price. But as long as there's people willing to sell Bitcoin at $86,000 per coin, nobody in the world has to pay more than that. If somebody's willing to sell at that price, then the buyers will always buy the cheapest Bitcoin that they can buy, and the sellers will always sell at the highest price they can get. But right now, the price that the supply and demand are meeting is right at about 86,000 a coin, which means there, for every single buyer at 86,000 a coin, there is a seller at $86,000 per coin. So that means somewhere in the world, some normal person, some regular person is, unfortunately parting with Bitcoin they had acquired, and it is being scooped up by corporations and governments and high net worth individuals. So how is this all going to play out? Well, what's eventually going to happen is there will be a massive increase in the money supply by the Federal Reserve. Now, why do I know this is going to happen? Because it has to happen. It is mathematically impossible to sustain the current debt load of the United States. The only thing that literally can happen is at some point the Federal Reserve has to print vast quantities of money to keep the system from the whole system from basically house of cards coming down. So there's a 100% chance they will do that. And the question is, how much Bitcoin will you own before that happens versus after that happens? So let's say sometime in the next, year, 2 years, however long it takes, maybe it's 6 months, at some point, the Federal Reserve is going to massively open the gushers of the money printers, and Bitcoin's going to run from $86,000 per coin to hundreds of thousands of dollars per coin. And once again, everybody will feel like they missed out. They got there late to the party, that if they were going to buy Bitcoin, they should have bought it before now. And if people continue to part with Bitcoin, then ultimately Bitcoin is the greatest potential to eliminate wealth inequality, because it's the first asset in the world that anyone in the world could buy all at the same time with equal opportunity based on how much money they had. Lots of other assets, for example, privately held companies, cannot be purchased by average people. In the case of Prospera, where I serve as president, we are a privately held company. That means we are not publicly traded on the stock market. And because we are not publicly traded on the stock market, you have to have a net worth, according to the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC. The laws of the United States require you to have a net worth of more than $1 million, excluding the value of your house. So you literally cannot invest in privately held companies in the United States unless your net worth is above $1 million, excluding your house. So most huge portion of investments are like that there's really no easy way for regular people to gain access to them. Bitcoin is the first example that I know of in history where it's super easy for anyone to buy Bitcoin, and there's no requirement on net worth. There's no requirement, hold on one second here, there's a bunch of noise. There's no requirement on net worth to buy Bitcoin. You don't have to be an accredited investor. There's not a minimum requirement. You can literally buy $1 of Bitcoin if you want to buy $1 of Bitcoin. So it's this amazing asset that has the ability to do more to eliminate wealth inequality than literally anything else. But that presumes that regular people actually buy Bitcoin, and they don't just turn around and sell it when it's down to corporations and institutions and hedge funds and all of that. If those people do that, if those people are constantly buying in euphoria and then selling, then what's going to end up happening is a large percent of the Bitcoin is going to end up being owned by corporations or hedge funds or governments or things like that. And then one day the regular people will wake up and say, why is there so much wealth inequality in the world? And the answer is because you sold your Bitcoin or you did not buy Bitcoin in the first place. Like, now is the time to fix wealth inequality by regular people buying Bitcoin and not selling Bitcoin. But alas, humans are humans, and humans do what humans do, and unfortunately, sometimes that involves doing things that, people regret. So right now, Bitcoin should be valued at way more than $86,000 based on the adoption by institutions, hedge funds, businesses, high net worth individuals. All of that is marching along beautifully. The adoption of Bitcoin, by every metric is amazing. The only metric that is not amazing right now is the price. And the only reason that price metric is not amazing is there are too many people that do not understand what Bitcoin is, but bought some of it and are now selling it. They bought it in the euphoria above $100,000 per coin. They are now selling it because they do not understand what they own. And of course, buyers only have to pay the price that the sellers are willing to part with their Bitcoin for. So if they're willing to sell it at 86,000, that's the price of Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin could do a huge amount for the world to solve wealth inequality, to level the playing field, and to make everything about people's existence easier and better. But it involves more people adopting Bitcoin, and it involves the people who have bought some Bitcoin not selling it, which apparently is what a lot of them are doing right now. So great time to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still on sale. At some point, there will be a radical increase in the price of Bitcoin. And the question is, how much will you own before that radical increase happens as compared to after that radical increase happens? Because after that radical increase happens, you're going to have to pay a whole lot more for the same amount of Bitcoin. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks.